Thank you, Erica. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Wow, there's such a great energy in this room. I am just loving this event. This is great. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. So today, I'm going to talk to you about mentorship and diversity. So I just want to set some expectations. I spent a lot of time presenting technical content, stuff about business, so on and so forth. For this event, I thought I would focus more on my journey in IT and how mentorship has impacted my career, and the fact that I strongly believe that mentorship leads to diversity, because I can tell you right now that I would not have made it 20 years in IT without my mentors. So I just want to say that normally I don't share negative stories about my career publicly, but I want to frame it out in the context of some things that have happened to me that were bad, that impacted me in a negative way. I sort of got through them from my mentors, from mentorship, from people guiding me and helping me through my career. So I'm just going to talk about where I come from. So my background is very diverse. On my mother's side of the family, I come from a farm family. And my grandma and grandpa started with 100 acres and ended up growing a farm to 2,400 acres. And in the spare time that my grandma had, she raised 12 children. Yes, that's quite the accomplishment. And on my father's side, my paternal side of the family, my grandma comes from Sandy Bay Reservation and my grandfather comes from Long Plains Reservation. So I come from a very kind of rural background. So my family is very diverse, generationally and also ethnically. My daughter is, in addition to my genetics, she is also Filipino and Vietnamese. My husband is Polish, and I was obviously come from a mixed background. Now, from a generational perspective, I'm Generation X, my husband's a millennial, and my daughter is Gen Z. So, very diverse background. So my starting point in IT, I worked in hospitality for a number of years, and when I was 25, I decided that I wanted to do something a little more substantial, because I wanted to have a daughter one day, and I wanted to be a good role model for her. So I went back to school, I went to Red River, and I took computer analyst programmer course, and I took the fast track course, so I finished it in 18 months. And there were very few females in my class, and all of us graduated. A number of the males dropped out. We started with 35, 8 people dropped out, and they were all male. But all the females in my class, we stuck it through, we graduated, and come to my first day on the job. So I'm going to talk to you about that. My terrible, horrible, awful very first day in IT. True story. It was one of the worst days of my life, if I'm honest. So the department, I'm just going to describe it to you. I landed in an IT department in a large organization, and there were about 30 people in the department. In that department, there was 2 other women and 1 person that was from out of country. Other than that, everybody was a white male. So 20 years ago, we were not diverse in tech. That was not a thing. Organizations are starting to think about diversity, but the tech world seemed to be out of scope for diversity. Everyone seemed to take it for granted that white males were tech, and that's how it went. So I felt obviously a little out of place. I felt a little isolated, and I was a little scared. So the senior developer there was this fellow who was supposed to train and mentor me. And it turns out that he didn't know I was coming. He didn't know that I had been hired. And when he found out that I was a young female, fresh out of school, he was not very happy. And he actually gave his 2 weeks notice the day that I landed. So that was devastating for me, because I was looking forward to having someone senior lead me down the path and teach me and guide me. And he wanted nothing to do with me. He didn't even want to say hi to me. It was pretty awful. And the second thing that happened, my very first day in IT, I ran into the IT director in the hallway, and he said, "Me and the boys are going out for lunch. Would you like to join us?" And I said, "Oh, well, where are you going?" And he said, "Santa Lucia." And I said, "Oh." And he said, "You know what they say about Santa Lucia, right?" And I'm like, "No, what do they say about Santa Lucia?" And this is you guys are gonna find this hard to believe, but this was 20 years ago. And he said, "You can beat your wife, but you can't beat Santa Lucia." And I was devastated. And I just had this sun look on my face. And then he kind of went, "Oh, yeah, I guess that wasn't a very good joke for you." And he wandered away. Needless to say, I did not go out for lunch with the boys. I did not feel like it was an inclusive environment. I did not feel welcome. I felt like my first day on the job, I made a huge mistake. I've made a terrible mistake. I don't belong here. Nobody wants me here. I shouldn't be here. Then this happens. The senior developer who was supposed to mentor me wanted nothing to do with me, wouldn't talk to me. I had asked him for some documentation one time, and he took it off of his desk and he threw it on the floor, and I had to pick it up. So after that, I didn't ask him for documentation. I didn't ask him for help. I decided, you know what? I'm going to try and make this work, and I'm going to have to do it on my own, and I'm going to do my very best, and we will see what happens. Then I made a very big mistake. I was asked to refresh a production database, and because I didn't have any guidance, I entered an incorrect parameter, and I wiped it out, completely wiped out a production database my first week on the job. Again, I was devastated. I was struggling with the worst case of imposter syndrome that I have ever had. Again, feeling like I don't belong here. I'm not part of this. Nobody wants me, and I'm no good. So, something happened that changed my mind about all of this. I met my very first mentor. I had to go to the database administrator, who was a white dude, older guy. He was a family man, and he had daughters. So I guess he had a different perspective maybe than some of the other gentlemen that I was working with. So he told me that this isn't the first time that's happened. Many people have wiped out that database. It's not a big deal. I'm going to restore it for you. Don't even worry about it. Yeah. It was not a big deal. In my head, of course, it was a huge deal, but he made it okay. And he took me under his wing, and he made me feel like I belonged there. And I would not have lasted in that job without him. The other thing that happens, I noticed that Fridays the boys would go out for lunch, and I was never invited. And after a while, it kind of got to me. At first, I was like, okay, that's fine. It got to me, and I thought, these guys don't like me. They don't want to spend time with me. They don't enjoy my company. Maybe they're okay to work with me, but they certainly don't want anything to do with me. So I went and talked to him about it, and I asked him, why is this happening? How come nobody likes me? How come you guys don't invite me out for lunch? And again, 20 years ago, so different times, I guess, but what he told me was that they didn't want to invite me out for lunch because they like to go to Earl's and they like to talk about the waitresses. And if I was there, it would change the conversation. So I was like, okay, well, that kind of really sucks. But what he did was he went and talked to the guys and he said, well, let's invite Sheila out for lunch like once a month. No big deal, right? So they did, and I started going for lunch with them. And I found that I enjoyed their company and they enjoyed mine. So that worked out really well. But if he hadn't intervened with that group, I would never have been included. So in addition to being a mentor, he really was, he was a fixer for me. He fixed things. And he made it okay for me to be me in that environment. The other thing is the lay of the land. So back in the day, I know nowadays we talk about our soft skills, which I call core skills. Back in the day, 20 years ago, this notion of IT guys being backroom guys, you don't want anyone to talk to them and they're rude and miserable, that was a thing. So there were guys there that were really rude to me and were miserable, and every interaction I had with them, I felt like I was doing something wrong. And he, again, guided me and explained to me that it's not you, they're just miserable to everybody. They're just miserable people, so don't let it get to you, right? So he helped me tremendously in my job, not the technical part of it, because I was very good at that, but with the fitting in part and with the feeling okay with being me and in that environment and sticking out like a sore thumb because I was different from everybody. So I'm going to tell you about my terrible, horrible, awful performance review. So this is a good story. At the time I had a different manager, and this is a different guy, and he kept telling me how I was outperforming everybody on his team. He kept telling me how great I was doing and, how wonderful I was, and he promised me a promotion. He said, your next performance review, you're going to get a nice promotion. Really happy with the work you're doing. So we sit down to have the performance review, and there's a couple other people there, and I'll tell you about them on the next slide. And basically, he marked me as meets expectations in every category. And I was kind of surprised, so I said, well, we've been talking, and in our discussions, you've been telling me that I'm outperforming everybody on your team. And he told me, well, yeah, you're meeting expectations because I have different expectations for you. And I was like, oh, okay. Could you please explain that to me? I'm not quite sure what you're trying to tell me. And the long and the short of it was, he told me that because I'm a woman in IT, I have to work harder than everybody else around me to be taken seriously. And that's why he had different expectations of me. So he expected me to be a high performer because of my circumstances, because of my gender, and the fact that I was working in a male-dominated field. So I was pretty devastated by that, and I actually started arguing with him. And the long and the short of it was, he got up, said, okay, well then, you know what, you're not getting your promotion, and he walked away. So, obviously I was devastated. Again, there's been a lot of devastation in my career, it's a thing. But then this happens. In that meeting, I had been working on a very large regional project, so I was working with some consultants. There was a consultant there, and there was also my dotted line manager, and she was in charge of the decision support department. So I was doing some business intelligence work for her. So what happened is they were in the interview, or the performance review, they saw this whole thing happen, and they were both pretty upset about it. So the consultant ended up, breaking a rule. You're not supposed to poach employees from the place where you're consulting, but he did take me aside and he said, this is not a good place for you, and you need to leave and you need to come and work for my organization. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. The other thing that happened was my dotted line manager physically moved me out of the other manager's department into her area. And she talked to HR, and she had a lot of clout because she'd been there a long time. She talked to HR, and she had me bumped up on my pay scale so that I was getting paid what I would have had I gotten the promotion that I had been promised. So she did that for me. The other thing that she did for me, she became a mentor to me. And one of the really big changes that I made at that point in my life, I had been wearing jeans and t-shirts and runners to work because I desperately wanted to fit in with my department. And she was a very well put together woman in skirts and dresses and makeup and jewelry. And she was a huge influence on me in that when I was moved to her department, I adopted that. I love dressing up. I love makeup and jewelry and clothes, and I love all that stuff. So I changed my entire look and I started dressing more feminine because I felt comfortable now being female in her department. So in terms of mentorship, a lot of organizations have formal mentorship programs, and I think that's a good thing, but I think that we have to be careful about them because I had a really awful experience with a formal mentorship program. I'm going to tell you about that. So, that one time I had a company assigned formal mentor. The trigger for me was I had gone to a new organization and I had a new boss, and he seemed to object to the fact that I was female. And a few things happened. This one time he pulled me into his office and said, we need to talk about the way you dress. And I said, okay, well, what's wrong with the way I dress? And he said, well, you wear skirts and high heels. And he said, this is an IT shop. How do you ever expect to fit in here if you're dressed like that? So, I kind of figured out right away that he wasn't going to be a supporter of mine, and he wasn't going to try and elevate me in the organization. So I went to HR and I asked for a mentor. I said, we didn't have a mentorship program, but they said, oh, we're thinking about that. That's great. Okay, well, let's get started. So I was in an IT organization, and there was only one woman on the executive part of the org chart, and she was director level. So HR decided that, they would pair me up with her. She would be my mentor. When I asked them, why specifically her, they said, well, we don't want a lawsuit on our hands. It would be inappropriate for you to be mentored by a male. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting take on it. So when we think about mentorship, let's think about being diverse in mentorship, and females don't have to mentor females, and males don't have to mentor males, and we can all do just a big mix of whatever we want, whatever works, right? So the long and the short of it is, that relationship did not work out because she had no interest in mentoring me, and HR kind of bullied her into it, and I don't hold it against her. She just wasn't interested. So I didn't get the mentorship and the support that I needed, and bad things continued to happen to me at that organization. And the long and the short of it is I left that job. I quit that job, and I'm not a quitter, and I don't like quitting things, but that was a job that I had to quit. I had to leave. It was a very toxic environment for me, specifically because I was a female. I was the only female lead out of 10 technical leads at that organization, and a number of things happened that I'm not going to go into detail about, but it was not a good time for me. I left, and I did not go back to work for 8 months. I needed 8 months to recover, and I didn't think I was ever going to work in IT again because so many horrible things had happened to me. And I just thought, okay, Sheila, when are you going to give up?